Journeys Ahead, The Song of Serpents. Epilouge. Written and narrated by T.S. Pro Art. 2 years later, December 7th, 2025. As a gentle snowfall descended down upon Aurora, a special ceremony was being held within the backside area, the deep, deep woods to be exact. A private procession that was both small, yet important all the same. It was a wedding day. Void's and Jaida's wedding day. After the events of Ophis, the two star-crossed lovers made it work. Jaida managed to fully set up her music station in Nox's workshop, and Void had become the new, quippy protector of Aurora City, even making part-time cash working as a fellow baker at Sarvy Sweets. For over the last 2 years, Void and Jaida went on many dates, from restaurants to hikes, to even having to deal with the common foe. Although Jaida had pretty much retired from being the Phantom, she still found time to aid Void when it was needed. It was really how their relationship worked, and they wouldn't have had it any other way. A few months earlier, Void saved up enough cash, bought a ring, and popped the question upon the very same rooftop where they got to know one another. To no one's surprise, it was a firm yes that ended with a tackling hug. Now, Void stood underneath a wooden arch as a calm yet gentle snowfall descended. Surprisingly, it hadn't been that cold. Rather, it had been quite warm. However, that could have been chalked up to the massive form of Warnog, who wrapped himself around the procession, making it all the more private. Standing up front with his hands clenched down by his waist, Void stood anxiously as he waited for his bride to walk down the aisle. The Spark, for once, had been wearing something fancy. Dawning over his biomechanical body was a dark blue tuxedo and pants that stretched all the way down to a pair of clean gray shoes. It had been tipped with both a crystal blue bow tie as well as small orange flowers in his pocket. Behind him stood the grandmother, acting as the priest for their engagement, while in the seats sat Void's friends, the clown, the cat, angel, dragon, and even a chimera. Sitting around them as well were also Sarv, next to Tucker, and even Kot. It was a small gathering, but these were the only family members and friends Void and Jaida truly had left. In truth, it's all he could have asked for. Your parents would be very proud of you, Sparklet. I just know they're watching down upon you with gleeful eyes. The grandmother said as she took a small bow towards the Spark, who turned and smiled in appreciation. Thank you, Aunt Delilah. I hope you're right. Void returned with a blushing expression. Do you think they would have liked her? He then asked. Your mother was rather quirky and outlandish herself. She would have loved Jaida. I believe your father would have as well. He didn't marry your mother after all. The large axolotl returned, leaving Void to nod his head and adjust his bow tie. Here she comes, Sparklet. Delilah quietly whispered, making the Spark nervously perk up and gaze towards the aisle pathway that was made up with sticks and leaves. Here comes the bride! Here comes the bride! Coco suddenly blurted aloud as she emerged from the trees and bounced her way down the aisle, throwing flower petals to the ground as well as small acorns, one of which, hitting the clown in the face, where it then proceeded to be absorbed into their skin. Oh, lovely day, oh, here comes the bride. Coco finished as she bounced her way towards Void's side and stood defiantly with her hands upon her hips. Who needs a best man when you have a best frog? Coco said before patting Void's shoulder, leaving the Spark to smile towards the ripple. It was then she appeared. Walking from the frosty tree line with Nock by her side, Jaida slowly made her way down the aisle, wearing an orange and yellow dress. Flowers sat within her now flowing pink hair, whilst her blusher rested neatly over her face, behind of which glowed her pearly white eyes. As she reached the Spark, Nock pat her side and then stood at her side, adjusting his glasses and wiping small tears from his face. Gently reaching out, Void took hold of the blusher over her face and raised it up and away from it, revealing the one he had loved. Jaida's face was winced into a smile, burning a hot orange while the constellations flourished beneath her skin. Small tears rested at the corner of her eyes, making the spark tear up as well. "Hey," she whispered, looking down upon her boyfriend. "Hey," Spark replied, having to look up due to Jida wearing heels. "Everyone, we are gathered here today in celebration of the marriage between both Void Novison and Jida Woods. Before we continue, the rings, please," Delilah exclaimed before the sounds of footfalls came from down the aisle. A series of awes then fell from the voices in everyone's mouths as Pofnu, who were now much larger than a German shepherd, came trotting down the aisle. A basket had been within her mouth that held both a gold and silver ring. Sitting down before the bride and groom, Pofnu wagged her many sets of tails and gestured for both Void and Jida to take each other's rings. Reaching out, they both scratched their mythical creature before Void took Jida's ring and Jida Void's. "Before we make the final call, a few words from our bride and groom," Delilah brought up as she gestured to Jida, who nodded and took hold of Void's hand, beginning to now speak from her heart. "You know, I never thought I'd find someone like you. I was in a state of confusion, loss, and countless other things. And then one fateful night, you literally crashed into my life," Jida said, making Nock and a few others who knew the story chuckle, Void included. "I won't lie when I say that I fell pretty quickly for you, but never could I have imagined where we would be today. Saving lives, being the best we can be. You helped me when I needed it most. You made me realize that I mattered, realize that I could love myself minus my flaws," Jida expressed as she slipped the Spark's ring over his finger. "You gave me reason to keep going, and I'm happy to say that I'm continuing forth on that journey with you by my side. I love you, Blue Eyes." Jida finished, leaving a small uproar of claps and awes from the crowd. Now it was Void's turn. Taking her hand in his, the Spark rose the silver ring up and took a deep breath and began. "When I caught wind of a glitch being in Aurora, never would I have thought I would crash into such an incredible person. For as long as I can remember, I had been alone, scared and lost. I never intended on forming relationships again, in fear of losing them. Yet, you changed my world in the best way one could imagine." Void began as tears began to gently stream down his face. "You've made me smile, laugh, cry. You listened to my dumb riddles and so much more. You broke me free from my cycle of doubt, shattered the walls that kept me caged. You helped me even when it posed a threat to your life." Void went on, trying not to bawl out sobs. "Somehow, I had always loved you, but I was too blind by my past to see it. I never truly realized what I wanted for myself in this world. But now I do," Void said as he slipped the silver ring around Jida's finger. "I want to love, to cherish, to be around all these incredible people that you have brought into my life. I want you, Jida Woods, because I love you too." The small crowd erupted in applause and awes yet again as Jida wiped away a small set of tears from her eyes, as well as Void, before they both reached out and re-held hands in a warm embrace. "Very well, let us not waste time. Do you, Jida Woods, take Void Novison as your dearly beloved husband?" the Great Mother asked, leaving Jida to reply with a little, "I do." Those two words that left her mouth sent shivers down the Spark's spine, who was about to seal the deal himself. "And do you, Void Novison, take Jida Woods as your beloved wife?" Void didn't even need to think twice. With another tear streaming down his face, he responded with the very words that sealed the lock upon the next chapter in both of their lives. I do. Standing to her full height, the grandmother held her hands together and finished off the last section of the wedding tradition. Very well then. Void Novison, Jida Woods, I now pronounce you as husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Before Void could even make the first move, Jida wrapped her arms around him and proceeded to tilt him down, giving him the most powerful kiss he had ever experienced. As she did so, the woods around erupted in claps and cheers. Even Warnog raised his head up and gave a defiant victory roar. As the snow continued to fall, both Void and Jida stared into each other's eyes, and then embraced. It was a new day for them, for everyone. The sun gently shimmered behind the clouds. The snow felt as though it were a gentle breeze, as the world had just received its newly wedded couple. A pair from different worlds, but a match made in heaven it would seem. For the star-crossed lovers were here to stay.